Postvention is a term that includes everything done after a suicide to help a community heal and to prevent any further suicides. As a journalist or member of the media, you can play an important role in preventing suicide. If a suicide is covered properly and ethically, it can help a community come together, heal, and learn from the tragedy. If it's portrayed in a sensational, oversimplified way, the story could result in subsequent suicides. The Postvention Guide, members of the media chapter, provides detailed recommendations for reporting on suicide in your community. We would strongly suggest you read these guidelines. We'll cover the highlights in this video. First, we'd like to share a few important points when covering suicide. More than 50 research studies worldwide have found that certain types of news coverage can increase the likelihood of suicide in vulnerable individuals. The magnitude of the increase is related to the amount, duration, and prominence of coverage. The risk of additional suicides increases when the story explicitly describes the suicide method, uses dramatic, graphic headlines or images, and repeated or extensive coverage sensationalizes or glamorizes a death. Covering suicide carefully can change public misperceptions and correct myths, which can encourage those who are vulnerable or at risk to seek help. Suicide is a public health issue. Media and online coverage of suicide should be informed by using best practices. Some suicide deaths might be newsworthy. However, the way media covers suicide can influence behavior negatively by contributing to contagion, or positively by encouraging vulnerable people to seek help. When reporting, avoid misinformation and offer hope. Suicide is complex. There are almost always multiple causes, including psychiatric illness, that may not have been recognized or treated. However, these illnesses are treatable. When reporting, refer to the research findings that mental disorders and/or substance abuse have been found in 90% of people who have died by suicide. Avoid reporting that death by suicide was preceded by a single event, such as a recent job loss, divorce, or bad grades. This leaves the public with an overly simplistic and misleading understanding of suicide. Consider quoting a suicide prevention expert on causes and treatments. Avoid putting expert opinions in a sensationalistic context. Use your story to inform readers about the causes of suicide, its warning signs, trends and rates, and recent treatment advances. Add statements about the many treatment options available, stories of those who overcome a suicidal crisis, and resources for help. Include updated local and national resources where the audience can find treatment, information, and advice that promotes help seeking. If you're in the online media, there are some helpful suggestions for you as well. Bloggers, citizens journalists, and public commentators can help reduce the risk of contagion with posts or links to treatment services, warning signs, and suicide hotlines. Include stories of hope and recovery and information on how to overcome suicidal thinking and increase coping skills. The potential for online reports, photos, videos, and stories to go viral makes it vital that online coverage of suicide follows site or industry safety recommendations. Social networking sites often become memorials to the deceased and should be monitored for hurtful comments and for statements that others are considering suicide. Message board guidelines, policies, and procedures could support removal of inappropriate or insensitive posts. You will find a helpful sidebar for stories in the Postvention Guide, members of the media chapter. This gives warning signs and lets your audience know what they can do if someone they know exhibits warning signs of suicide. You can also find a link for reporting on suicide for more helpful guidance.